We have taken control of this transmission. There is nothing you can do.
This is Radio TakeOver. Radio TakeOver. With hosts Karen Wooden and Chuck Fresh.
We ask that you remain calm and stay dialed in to AM 1510 WMEL, FM 94.7, 99.9, and 100.7.
Hey everybody, this is Karen Wooden along with
Chucky Fresh
on Radio TakeOver. Happy Wednesday.
It's a beautiful Wednesday here in the neighborhood.
It is.
Every Wednesday's good because you got a couple of days left till the end of the week. Everybody's starting to get perky.
Right.
Is there a drink associated? I know they have taco or tequila Tuesdays.
We have Wino Wednesdays.
There you go.
Wino
Perfect.
Wednesdays. And speaking of that, Apothic Crush is once again our wine flavor of the week.
There is a definite theme going on there because we like Apothic because it sounds like apothecary.
It does.
So it's like medication.
It is.
So we try to get ourselves all happy with a little time. And we're not like total winos here. Don't get us wrong. We're having one glass on the air, okay?
Yeah.
This is radio, so you can't see it. So it's our story. We'll make it as big as we want it.
Medicinal purposes.
That's right.
Purely.
Hey, I'm stupid excited about today's guest. You know why?
Tell us why.
Because he brings laughter into the world. And Lordy knows we need that more now than ever before. At the same time, he brings people together. Joining us in the studio today is the legendary comedian, Marvin Lee, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh, thank you, guys. Thank you, guys. I'm so happy to be here. I love it every time I make my way down to Florida.
He is the man. His career, let's talk about Marvin's career. It's allowed him to perform in some of the most prestigious comedy clubs in the U.S., as well as several different countries around the world, even Canada. Is Canada a prestigious country?
I don't know. You know, we've never even been invited into prestigious clubs.
Yeah, right,
so that's a stretch.
I've never been in a prestigious comedy club either, Karen. So we need to have our people work on that. I guess we got to get people.
We got to get people first.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, so, you know, Canada's great unless somebody tells you it's Canada. I'm like, I thought this was the U.S. Everything's the same, so they got colorful money. That's the only difference.
Ah, yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Marvin Lee is like a younger, slightly edgier Sinbad. With the exception of Asian, Marvin Lee has been mistaken for every minority living in the United States to the conclusion of, what are you? Hilarious is the answer. His amazing range of perspectives of the human condition to his commentary on the battle between the sexes always creates an atmosphere of good-natured comedy while allowing his audience to learn something about each other and hopefully themselves, Chuck.
And he's clean, too. I don't know how he does that cleanly.
I know.
You know, Bill Cosby.
Thank you. Thank you. I really appreciate you guys about that, too, because, you know, it's funny. I've had that intro, and I'm like, oh, yeah, that does sound like a great show. Wait a minute, that's me.
That's all you. We won't tell you where we got that from.
You know, Bill Cosby was clean, too, and you see what happened to him.
Yeah.
So we're not going down that path, right? Uh-huh.
You know, and it's funny because I used to always, they used to be someone I used to always emulate. You know, some big fans of mine, Sinbad. Sinbad is actually the one that inspired me to do comedy. So when I actually had gotten that, when the newspaper article that came out of South Carolina linking me to that, that was probably one of the biggest honors that I ever had because I didn't go out to be that way. It just kind of wound up becoming that way. So Sinbad was a big idol of mine. George Wallace, naturally at the time, and I guess we all have to put an asterisk with it, was Bill Cosby as well. You know, he kind of messed that up. But as far as stage presence, you know, he was another big influence as well. Yeah. And some people that a lot of people don't understand, wouldn't maybe necessarily recognize unless you follow comedy, people like Carlos Mencia, too. And even though Carlos Mencia doesn't perform clean, I like how he really kind of digs in and kind of goes for things and makes people kind of question stuff. So they're all influences of mine.
Yeah, we've seen you do that too. I mean, you bend the edge. He's right there. We saw Marvin at the Jack Straw's in Palm Bay not too long ago, and he was hilarious that day.
He did good. And what surprised me, and it always surprises me because I go and I see other comics perform. Sure. And, you know, my kids like some of these comics, but they're used to seeing them on TV.
Right.
And one of them that I went to see was Ron White, expecting to see, you know, something similar to TV. There were people that brought their kids there. And I am so glad I did not bring. I was educated that night in things that I never even thought. And so what was interesting that night is there were people that brought their kids.
Yeah.
And you were... you just were magnificent. You were able to kind of
He's
retailer
able to,
the show.
yeah. He kind of like had these little double entendres where the kids didn't really know what he was talking about. The adults got it, you know, some of the sexual innuendos. But you did a heck of a job. I was pretty impressed.
Yeah, and I can tell you, first of all, I was shocked to see that there were little kids in the audience.
Whoa, hello.
So are we.
Yes.
Yeah, you know, I looked over, and I don't have a problem with that. But usually, you know, on a slightly serious tip, one of the reasons why I always kind of, as a general rule, tell people, you know, don't bring your kids to the show has really nothing to do with me per se. But a lot of times when you're up there talking and having a good time, a few people are having a drink, a lot of times for some people, they become more self-conscious if they're doing something or drinking in front of somebody else's kids. So it has more to do with them than necessarily for me or the content of my show. And then, like you said, sometimes I always try to tell people I do something different that I don't think anybody has ever done so far. I pride myself on doing an adult show. I love doing an adult show, but I do an adult clean show. And so people say, wait a minute, you just said you do an adult show. Absolutely. But you said it's clean. Absolutely. Well, that doesn't make any sense. And that's what kind of goes into this new thing that I've been doing called Marvin Lee Presents a Contradiction. Because I like talking about issues about husbands and wives and couples and dating and day-to-day things. But these are topics that, to be honest, an adult gets. I mean, you can't talk to certain subjects to kids. It has nothing to do with content or being vulgar. It's just where you are. And that used to be one of the biggest things that I used to try to explain to people, because certain words now have gotten taken over to where they mean things that they really shouldn't mean. Like you said, oh, I do an adult show. People naturally going to think it's going to be dirty. And that's a sad fact in today's market, because that's not what I do. And so I love performing clean. I love doing the innuendo. That's my whole thing. If somebody goes, yeah, he said that, but I'm wondering if he means this. And it's so easy for a comic to get out there and just start cursing and saying a bunch of things or whatever like this. And the fact is, now you have too many comics who use the idea of being able to curse and say anything. And, you know, they say, oh, I want to have free speech. I want to be able to do that. Yes, that's true. And I'm a big believer in free speech. The problem comes in is that a lot of times comedians aren't doing that because of free speech or because they want to be uninhibited. They do it because they don't have enough creativity to do anything else. They don't have the expertise to be able to talk to somebody who's 15 in the audience and then at the same time talk to somebody who's, 35 or 40 or maybe 60. I've done shows within a week where I performed in front of a whole audience full of people. No one was over 17, because I actually did a show for a high school marching band one time. The very next day, I did a show for some people in there between 25 and about 55, which is roughly about a comedy club audience. That very last day, I did a show where the majority of the people were probably in their late 60s to early 70s. And a lot of these guys who run around and call themselves professional comedians say, oh, I'm really funny, but they're very funny to a very slim margin. They can't perform for these various groups. And one of the things I pride myself is being able to make a lot of different people laugh, depending on, I don't care what age you are, I don't care what color you are, I don't care where you come from, geographically, I don't care about your income. My job as a professional comedian, and that's why I always try to tell people I'm a professional comedian, not just a comedian, is that I should be able to walk anywhere and make people have a good time. And that's what I pride myself on doing.
It's hard to do. It's really hard to adjust to those audiences, because you use the bad words for the cheap thrill because they get such a quick impact. But what you're doing is so much more cerebral. You really have to think about who your audience, who you're talking to, and then adjust things and try to tell the story. It's a lot harder. Yeah. You have to find those words that substitute for that one F word that means so many different things.
But I don't think you need necessarily. I mean, what really does a lot of those words, I mean, how does it really improve your act?
For some reason, people react differently.
Little ones, like little tiny words.
There's a couple of different psychologies behind it. Like, here's a good example. The one that really changed my vision on stuff, and a lot of people will be shocked when I saw that, is years ago I saw an interview with Richard Pryor talking to Barbara Walters. And this was when Def Comedy Jam was coming out, and it got to be the big rage, and every comic is on there just cursing and cursing and cursing. And Barbara Walters asked Richard Pryor, she said, what do you think about these new comics? Because they all said that you influenced them. And Richard Pryor said, I hate it. And I was shocked. when I saw that, and they said, why? Richard Pryor said, all these comedians are getting up and they're cursing, and they're looking at me as an influence for their act. He said, but you have to understand, I don't write any curse words in any of my acts. And you go, wait a minute, Richard Pryor curses all the time. And he goes, yeah, I curse, as a person, I get up and I start cursing. But you can take every single joke that I do, and you can take every curse word, and the joke is just as strong with or without the curse words. He said, there's no curse words in any of my material. It's just when I perform it. And I started thinking about that early on, and I thought he's right. Anything that you do, you can take any bit of cursing that Richard Pryor ever has done and just do the joke, and it's funny. And he said the other difference is everybody used to come see Richard Pryor, black, white, rich, poor, old, young. He said, but later on in the days of Def Comedy Jam, which happens to a lot of minority acts, when they come out, he said it's easy to talk to a room full of, it's easy to be black talking to a room full of black people about what's it like to be black. He said the art is to take a kid who grew up in, the cornfields of Iowa and bring him into my world. And those words were very impactful for me because that's what I try to do. I come from a biracial family, coming out of Alabama, so that has a lot of influences. But I have a lot of different cultures and stuff that I try to be able to talk to or incorporate what I do. Mm-hmm. And so it's very important that everything that I do is very, very inclusive. I don't like comics that sit there and say, those people are that way. Those people are this way. If you guys remember, one of the things that I pride myself in my act is I will sit there like when I start talking relationships. I will get on to the men about all of the stupid things that women do that drive us crazy. Mm-hmm. And they're like, yeah. But I'll turn it around and I'll get with the women and talk about all of the different things that men do that drive women nuts. And I have to keep a balance because if you don't keep a balance, then to me you're setting a bad mandate.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Well, let's go back a little bit and let's get into your childhood if we could.
Okay.
So we read somewhere, we also heard it at your act, because you're biracial, kids from both sides would come to you and ask you questions about the other. And your answers to their questions weren't always...
Oh, no, I make up stuff. I mean, I'm going to be flat. I would flat out lie about stuff. And I originally when I did it, I just did it because I thought it would be funny. Uh-huh. And it was. And
it's legitimate, correct?
Certain groups would do. But when I got older, I started looking back on it, and I started to realize the fact that I would say something that somebody would be like, oh, that's why black people do this, or is that why white people do this? And they would believe it, and I go, wait a minute, they honestly believe in these made-up silly things that I say? And then I started looking at the deeper part of it, and the deeper part is you have people that live very close to each other. We're not talking about states and borderlines. We're talking about 2 or 3 miles from each other.
Right.
And they don't know anything about each other's culture. And the more you understand people, the more you start looking at people from being not just those people or that group or them or us. You start looking at people as individuals, him, her, she, he. And that's what I really like. I always try to teach people, treat people as an individual. And once you go from there, you start learning and having a better idea of what that person brings to the table, and you start seeing people as individuals and not just groups of people. And I think that's one of the problems that I'm starting to see lately in the news and everything else, that everything is broken down into groups. I'm not a political person. I'm not a political comic, but I like treating people as individuals and not as groups.
What would be an example of what somebody would ask you?
I would have, like I would have somebody and say, like, hey, Marvin, usually what happens is it's something off the news or whatever, and they would say, hey, Marvin, why is it that black people seem to always be, getting pulled over by the cops or whatever, or something like this? And I'm like, well, first of all, it's not like they chose to. It's not like that. Oh, I haven't gotten pulled over by a cop lately. Let me do something. And and I go, oh, well, they say, I haven't had an opportunity to talk to my friendly officers for a while, so let me do that. And it's silly. Usually what happens, to be in all honesty, is somebody has something that they genuinely don't understand. And and one of the biggest things that I always tell my friends is the biggest thing that can help you is to be friends with everybody. You know, black, white, rich, poor, young, old, gay, straight, whatever, because that's when you learn things about certain cultures. And so, and one of the things I always try to tell people, if somebody's your friend, you don't need to sit there and put some type of disclosure or some kind of disclaimer into something. Like, you know, and this is all with my white friends, and I will say this is strictly for my white friends. Anytime somebody does something or anything that might be perceived as somewhat socially incorrect or, you know, something that's not PC, instead of just asking me, hey, Marvin, why do black people do this? Or Marvin, why did they do that? They go, hey, Marvin, I want to ask you something. I'm like, okay, now we've known each other for a lot of years. I'm like, yeah, I've known you for like 12 years now, man. Yeah, okay, so you know me. I'm like, I know you. Okay, so now you know I'm not racist, right? You know I'm not racist. I'm like, why? After 12 years, do you have to remind me that you're not racist? I know you're not, you know? But it's a cultural thing that only my white friends have to do, and I feel bad for it. But, you know, they're trained that way. Yeah. And I always try to tell people there's a big difference, and this is one of the things I'm really proud of, too. I do not believe in political correctness at all. I absolutely cannot stand politically correctness. But I do believe in respecting each other, and I do believe in respecting people as individuals. And a lot of times people don't understand that politically correctness is not the same as diversity. Political correctness is not the same as treating everybody equally. And they go, oh, it is. No, it's not. There's a big difference. And that's one of the things that, if you guys remember, that I kind of played around and I joked in my show, too, and I showed examples of that. Yeah. Because that's a big thing for me, too, as well.
That was a good example. So let's dig back a little bit, if we could. If you could close your eyes for a moment and just remember back to your childhood. Think back. When was the first time in your life you decided, hey, I think I want to become a comedian? What happened? What was that? Where were you? What were you doing?
The very first time that the idea, the concept even popped in my head, I was in my bedroom and I was watching Johnny Carson. And Carson would, pretty regular bring up a comic. He said, ladies and gentlemen, we've got this great new comedian coming out, and please welcome, John Smith or whoever. And I would watch these comedians, and they would come out, and they were, like, not funny. And I'm like, why? This guy's on Carson. Why is he not funny? And they were consistently not funny. And I was like, man, I like comedians, but I think I could do that, and I think if I get on Carson, I think I could be funny. And it wasn't until years later that I realized that there's a lot of things that they make the comedians change and modify for television or do some technical stuff that might affect their show. Right. But I remember I was probably maybe 12 or 13, and when I first thought that. But now the first time I actually got on stage and told a joke. Okay. I was about 9. 9? I just thought it was funny just telling a joke.
Where was this?
I was at camp. I was at camp, and they had like a little camp talent show. And they brought me on, and I was so nervous. And you want to hear the very first joke I ever wrote?
Yep. Yes. Absolutely.
Okay. All right. What is a termite's favorite type of cookie?
What is a termite's favorite type of cookie?
I don't know. What is it?
What is that?
And I said, an oatmeal cookie.
An oatmeal cookie.
An oatmeal? Oh, wait, say it again?
No, O-A-K. O-A-K.
Oatmeal. Oh, that's pretty good.
That is good.
I don't think I've ever heard that.
Not too bad.
That's a good joke.
Not too bad for 8 or 9. I thought it was funny. I got people that the kids laughed and the people like, oh, oatmeal. I'm like, yeah, oatmeal. And I was like, oh, good. Now I'm like, oh god. I look back and I'm like, oh, geez. Well, I guess that's okay for it.
That's clever.
What was your second joke? You remember that?
Reach back. I did that one joke, and I got my applause, and I walked off stage. I came in third.
There you go.
All right.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
I like that.
I wish it was that easy. You go up, tell one joke, and you're done.
Quit while you're on top of it.
$700.
Yeah, got in when the getting's good, and then I got out. But then, but that was the first time. Then I guess as far as actually, having appreciation for comedy, it was about 12 or 13. I know my dad used to let me listen to Richard Pryor concerts in the car when my mother wasn't around, because my dad said, if your mother hears me letting you hear Richard Pryor, she's going to be really, really mad.
Yep.
So that was one of the few things that was kind of a me and dad bonding type of thing, because I was doing something that I knew my mother didn't want me to do, and my dad thought it was kind of cool. So I guess there was kind of a little bonding moment between me and my dad,
Nice.
listening to Richard Pryor tapes. So that, I guess that, to be honest, I never put that together until I talked to you guys. But I think that might have had an influence too.
Wow.
Never thought about that.
Nice.
Let me ask you this. What did Mom and Dad think about you becoming a comedian?
Well, shortly after that, a little after I turned 12, my father passed away. And so then I got raised by my mom. So I grew up in a, one family household, and my mother worked 6 days a week. And I thought, that's what I thought a work week was 6 days a week.
That's tough.
But when she grew up, I had been doing comedy for about 10 or 11 years, and my mother had never come to the show.
Oh.
She had never seen me, and I would tell her about it, and she would go, "Oh, okay, whatever." And it wasn't until, as a matter of fact, the video clips that I sent you guys, the one that you saw where I was performing in front of a couple of thousand people, I actually invited my mother and my aunt to come see me. And they were watching, and then afterwards, all these people started coming out and shaking my hand and told me how they liked the show, and they told me how they liked the fact that I performed clean. And they were like, "Oh, because I look a lot like my mother." And they go, "Oh, you must be the mom. Aren't you so proud?" And I think it was at that moment that my mother goes, "Wait a minute, he really is a comedian." And so it took 2,000 people to explain to my mother that I was actually funny.
Chuck Fresh along with Karen Wood and our guest Marvin Lee here on Radio TakeOver. We're going to take a short break. We'll be back right after these words.
Whenever I am on the Space Coast, I always make time in my schedule to listen to Radio TakeOver with Karen Wood and Chuck Fresh. Stand by. They'll be back for another half hour after these messages. In a world, the Little Black Book, The Truth About Women. It's already been called the best dating book ever. The first and only book to tell the truth about women, dating, first names, and sex. This is the book banned in over 40 countries. Some powerful and successful men and most women do not want men to know these secrets. This is it. For the first time ever, it is the holy grail of women, their secrets, and how to be successful in life and relationships. Sections of the Little Black Book classify personality traits based on the type of car a woman drives, her hairstyle, her profession, and even what type of eyeglasses she chose. Author Miso N. Gray cites these are seemingly insignificant traits that can give you a tremendous insight into a woman's personality. Women are much more cerebral than men, so they calculate their choices more carefully, and those choices leave breadcrumbs. What's perhaps the most interesting and striking part of this book is the entire chapter dedicated to a woman's first name and what her name says about her. For example, Gray states the name Kim tells us that a woman may be bubbly, laid back, and virtually carefree, and rather loose. A woman named Andrea with dark hair is downright mean, but an Andrea with light hair is much more pleasant. A woman named Christine is dizzy and stuck up, and generally 2 beers short of a six-pack. Conversely, Michelle is exceptionally generous. If you need a hug, time, food, shelter, money, sex, or whatever, Michelle rarely fails. And if you're lucky enough to find a Lois, you'd better keep her forever. Gray has interpreted more than 100 popular male and female names in his quantitative analysis and disclaims. These descriptions in no way apply to the entire population, but the stereotypes are uncannily accurate. But that's not all Gray has uncovered in the Little Black Book. Learn why feminists are a lost cause. Learn why white women date black men. Learn why a U.S. veteran traveled to Asia for a mail-order bride. Find out exactly what you want in a relationship and learn exactly what you can do to become a Casanova and achieve success in the dating world. Little Black Book, The Secrets of Women by Miso N. Gray. Now available for a limited time on Amazon, Kindle, and Audible. ladies and gentlemen. We are back with Karen Wooden and Chuck Fresh with Radio Takeover, WMEL's hit radio talk show program. Heard every Wednesday on fine radio stations like this.
Welcome back to Radio Takeover. Chuck Fresh along with Karen Wooden. Our guest today, Marvin Lee, world-famous comedian. You were talking about your mother before we went to break.
You know, your mother is also the person that keeps you grounded, because I did a show in Las Vegas a couple of years back, and I got on the plane and I was headed back home, and I'm sitting on the plane and some people are like, "Hey, you're the comedian? Wait a minute, are you the comedian that was at the casino?" I'm like, "Yeah." And everybody's asking questions and everything, and I'm feeling kind of like a big superstar or whatever, because I'd never really had, anybody stop me before like that.
Yeah, it's cool.
And so I'm feeling good about myself. And so I fly in, and I had promised my mother that when I got into town, I was going to cut her grass for her. So I get in, I get tired and whatever, make it to my mother's house, put on my lawn clothes and everything, and I'm out there cutting grass. And then I hit this big, huge pile of grass. It was just this real tall weed. And my mother had taken the grass catcher off the back of the lawnmower because she just didn't want it. So we had like some bungee cords keeping the thing on. So when the grass cuts, it shoots grass all on your feet.
Oh.
And so I'm cutting grass and everything else. And then I hit this big pile of grass and like, boom, and a huge pile of dog crap was in there.
Nasty.
And when I hit it, it splattered all over my pants and on my shoes. And I stood there and I go, less than 24 hours ago, I was this big star in Las Vegas.
Yep.
And in less than 24 hours, I'm standing here hot sweating with dog crap all over my feet.
It's fleeting, isn't it?
So I go,
Yep.
It's fleeting.
Yeah, fleeting.
this is...
Get it? Oh, boy.
Yeah, and I stood there and I go, you know what? I think this is one of those life learning moments that about don't get a swell head, because you never know how things are going to change from one moment to the next.
Great advice, man.
Hey, when you going back to when you performed recently at Jack Straw's over there in Palm Bay, again, that was a great act. I mean, it was absolutely hilarious. Your act was over an hour and a half long.
No breaks.
No breaks. I mean,
I actually officially timed it, and I did an hour and 42 minutes.
Yeah,
that's got to be a record.
He's got stamina. How did you manage?
Thank you. I really appreciate that.
Maybe that way too.
Yeah, you can put it that way too. How'd you do that? Because aren't most routines rather short? They're pretty short.
Well, yeah. Traditionally, and this is one of the things that I was explaining to Jack Straw's, and what I would like to do. Traditionally, you got what we call the COWs, Comics of the Week, and in most comedy clubs, your main objective is just, we're going to get somebody here funny enough to sell drinks. But the problem with that is that traditionally, with most comic clubs, used to have an opener, a middle, and a main guy. And then what happened is, as the years progressed, when the comic got too big, he would leave and start doing concerts and television, and then the middle guy would take over the spot, and the opening guy would take that spot. So it was always a conveyor belt that allowed comedians to get better and better and more seasoned. So by the time they got to be the main guy, they're a polished act. Well, most comedy clubs, have kind of fallen by the wayside, but it's not because people don't enjoy comedy. Because a lot of times people go, "Oh, well, that was a fad in the 90s and the 80s and the 90s or whatever." I said, no, people still go out. People like to laugh. People like to drink. The problem comes in is that comedy clubs stop supporting the comedians. Comedy clubs start building people up. And so what I try to do now is I go in and I try to give people a concert. Each show that I do, I don't like to have an opening act, and I don't like to have a middle act. And it's not that I want all the glory or anything like that. It's just that I want to give people a complete experience from beginning to end. Just like if you're going to see, a Richard Pryor or George Carlin live in concert, or any big Kevin Hart, anybody who, when they have a special, you just see them. And that's what I want to give people. When you do a 3-man show, the opening act, he's a guy, a local guy trying to do his jokes, and he has his own thoughts and mandate. The middle guy, same thing. So you don't get a full experience of what the main comic can bring. You don't get his whole way of how he looks at it. You get kind of a chopped up piece of what this guy thinks, a chopped up piece of what this guy, and then the last guy. And I don't want to do that. And I've gotten to the point now where I don't do that anymore. And I was one thing is I had a long sit down with the people at Jack Straw's, and they are the nicest people on the planet, by the way.
Yes.
And I really explained to them how I want to do something different with them. How I want to say, I want to start bringing acts where you see the true experience. It's almost like a concert series. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to show them. I'm like, that hour and 45 minutes I did, I could have done at least another hour nonstop.
Good Lord.
My record for performing is about, I think, 2 hours and 23 minutes of nonstop. And basically what happened is my voice went out, but I still had the material.
I'm afraid I have to pee. I have to get up, man. Good Lord.
Have you timed yourself yet?
What? My what?
Yep.
My pee break?
We know that Marvin had part of his routine was he was explaining to. Should we even add that into this? Because you brought up pee. I thought that's what you were doing. How long you can be in the restroom?
Oh yeah. How long you can? Yeah.
How long you can keep that stream flowing?
Oh yeah. I'm probably about 1 minute and 35 seconds.
See, and I want to tell the public that Chuck said 1 minute 35 seconds because he knows I was proud of myself because I was able to do 1 minute 13 seconds.
Yep.
And the idea behind it is how men, we're very competitive.
That's right.
And, if we can time something, we either want to do something the longest or the fastest or whatever it is. And so and that's a part of it. But as far as the actual experience, the longest I've performed is 2 hours and 31 minutes.
Wow.
That was
Lord.
to date, and I know I could have gone longer than that. Now,
wow.
As far as the other things go that I have to watch is I have to make sure I don't wear out the audience.
Yeah.
I'm hyped up. I'm excited. I want people to have a good experience. And so usually right at about the hour mark, I'll ask the people in the audience, are you guys good? Is everybody happy? You want to do a little bit more, whatever? And if the audience is like, man, I want to go home, then I need to kind of wrap it up. But if everybody's having a good time and they're drinking and having fun and enjoying themselves, then hey, I want to give you more. I much rather over-deliver and undersell than for somebody who gets up there like, oh, I'm the greatest guy, and then they 35 minutes, they start fizzling. Because that's the problem with a lot of New York comedians and a lot of Los Angeles comedians. And it has nothing to do with them per se. It's just the way the environment. They only get 7 to 10 minutes on stage, and it's like one big open mic all through it. Yeah. So a lot of these guys will tell you, oh, I've been here, I've done this place, I've done that place and everything. And they've got this big, long history of all of these famous comedy clubs, and they can't do 15 minutes.
So when you leave your show, everybody walks out the door looking like the Joker from Batman. They have a permanent grin on their face.
It hurts.
It hurts.
Yeah. Hey, let me ask you this. You're a big supporter of our military, and we thank you for that. So how many times have you been overseas doing shows for the military?
11 tours. It depends on how you break it down and everything, but 11 tours overseas. And I know that was on one time where we had this big, huge thing that we went over. And then the last time I went over and I actually performed in Saudi Arabia and I performed in Korea.
Wow.
And it's kind of funny because the guy who's booking me, this shows you how education is when it comes to geography. And he's like, oh, I'm going to send you to the first place he told me was in Africa. And it's what's called Djibouti, Africa.
What's it called?
Where?
It's called Djibouti. It's like DJBOUTI. And when you land, they tell you, you're like, you got to do a Djibouti joke. And what happens in Djibouti stays in Djibouti. I like you, but I really love Djibouti. Yeah, and I performed in Saudi Arabia, and I performed in Korea, Japan. I love Japan. Korea, not so much. There's a big difference in the cultures between the two. A lot of times people just think of folks as forms of just Asian, which goes back to what I'm saying about, group of people, and they're very, very different culturally too. Yeah. But here's the biggest thing that I tell people. Most people who look at people from different countries and go, those people there, when I visit other countries and you see things, you go, you know what, I wouldn't have done what you did. I would do things differently. But now that I'm here, I kind of got a good idea of why you do what you do or what you do what you do. And so in my experience, when you take politics out, when you take all of the big things out, most people are about 80% the same. I don't care where you go in the world. They want to take care of their family. They want to have a happy life. They want to do, it's just, you know what I'm saying? It's that last 20% of how people are different that I think makes everybody mad at each other. And that's kind of a sad thing to think about, but, as of the human condition. But I really try to tell people, I didn't get to talk about any of the stuff about when I went overseas because we were running out of time. I didn't talk about any of the stuff that I did on The Walking Dead because we ran out of time. I was like, oh, man, I hate that.
So you mentioned AMC's The Walking Dead. So we've seen that you've been in a lot of movies and TV shows. Which one is your most favorite to appear in?
Most favorite that I've done where I can say I can see how everybody appreciates it and I felt like I'm a part of a bigger thing was The Walking Dead. Because when I got on The Walking Dead, I was never originally a fan. I didn't really get it or whatever. But once I was on the show and I saw how different things were, I felt like I was a part of a bigger thing. We just had a Walking Dead convention here this past weekend where some of my friends were there, and I showed up, and thousands of people came out. And I'm like, hey, I'm a part of that. And that made me feel good. Now, actually, being on the show kind of sucks. It's hot. You got mosquitoes.
Yep.
There's, but the thing about it, everybody's suffering. Everybody's hot. Yeah. Everybody's miserable. It's not like you got the main stars, and they're in these beautiful places. Everybody's out there, But the show that I probably had the most fun on was Marvel's Ant-Man when that came out. And that was an adventure. To be on something at that level and to be on so many different scenes, that was fun. And I told all my family about it. I'm like, check it out. And we went to the movies. I'm like, here comes my big scene. Here it comes. This is so cool. And everything I did was cut out.
Oh.
They cut out every scene. And so that was the most fun.
Right.
But it was also the most frustrating. And then I had a friend of mine named Chris. He was on Ant-Man one day. Just one day. And he had this huge scene where, if anybody's ever saw the movie, where he's a scientist and there's another guy's a scientist, and they shrunk a sheep, and they're both looking at this little sheep that they shrunk. And he's all on the big screen and everything.
Nice.
And I call him back, and I'm like, Chris, I so hate you right now.
Have you worked with any real big superstar actors, and who's your favorite one if you have?
Oh, yeah. Plenty. The most recent was Hugh Jackman. Hugh Jackman, I figured I definitely think he qualifies as the big star.
Yeah.
Hugh Jackman was, there's a new movie coming out called The Front Runner where Hugh Jackman plays Gary Hart from the 80s and stuff. Yeah. And I was like, there's no way Hugh Jackman, Gary Hart, really? And they got him. He looks like him a lot.
Wow.
That was really impressive. On Fast and Furious 8, that was probably the most amount of stars I've ever worked with together. In one room, it was The Rock, it was Kurt Russell, it was Jason Statham, and it was Clint Eastwood's son, Scott Eastwood. And we were all like that. I'm like, I can't believe all these people I'm working with. And I usually don't get starstruck, but it's like really cool to see how everybody, how everybody is. And probably one of the nicest people I've seen, Kurt Russell is an unbelievably nice guy. Every day, no matter how hard, he was nice. Hugh Jackman, unbelievably nice guy. I mean, you go, really? I mean, just really, really nice. The Rock is always very polished, everybody, I haven't really run into anybody that's been a real jerk and that's been really fortunate. I do know there's some actors out there that have been jerks to people that I know. But me personally, I've been lucky enough not to experience that.
Good. Lucky.
Nice.
We've heard some horror stories right here on the show, man.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Oh, yeah. There are some horror stories out there about, there's one bathroom and the star wants the bathroom for themselves and everybody else got to use a tree or bush. I've heard the stories, but I've been really lucky. Like The Walking Dead plays Andrew Lincoln, the main star, who Rick Grimes. I'm standing there in line with him at a porta potty. And I'm like, oh, well, they probably want you, to sit first, so go ahead. He's like, oh, okay, man, I appreciate it. And I'm like, it's Rick Grimes. We standing using the same porta potty. That's kind of cool.
So you got any upcoming shows here in Florida, Central Florida, in the next couple of weeks, couple of months? What's going on? Where can we find Marvin Lee?
You can always pick me up. My website is the easiest one in the world, www.comedianmarvinlee.com, and it has a lot of things there. Generally, I don't like usually post up. I don't have my schedule up about where I'm going, but I'm just getting off the phone with a few people now, and I do have some things about coming back down to Florida. As a matter of fact, I'm working out some more things with Jack Straws. One of the things we're talking about maybe bringing me back a little sooner to kind of give everybody an idea, kind of keep the momentum going. And and that was a really, really great venue for me. And, pretty much kind of working out the area. So, like I said, when the weather gets bad, I really, really like going down there. And I really like the people down in Florida too, and I've always had a really, really good experience. So, anytime. I mean, I have to balance me going to Florida and enjoying myself with what makes financial sense. And sometimes, I'm like, well, forget it. I'm going to go in the hole, but I'm going to go down to Florida. So you guys are very fortunate that way. You can make people come to your state versus if you're someplace like Butte, Montana. Yep. Nope.
Yeah.
You stay away from them square states, as you said in your act, right?
Yeah. Buddy, I stay away from those square states.
Square states.
That was pretty funny. If you haven't seen Marvin Lee on stage or one of his acts, we'll post some links to some of his YouTube stuff on our channel and actually underneath this particular show, too. And you need to check him out. He's hilarious.
Yeah, and I really appreciate you guys doing so much for me because, when we got in contact with Jazz, through Jack Straws and everything else, everything was very last minute. And, a lot of people don't understand, they think so many things, so much stuff just happens easily. And the fact that you guys stopped what you did and, and you took the time out of your schedule and changed some of your things to come out and see me, I am so very thankful for you guys to do that. I'm honored and I'm privileged to have you guys be able to do that because, you didn't have to do it and you did it anyway. And I wanted to make sure that I gave you guys the best show I possibly could too. So I really, really appreciate it.
It was awesome. It was our pleasure. Elizabeth Rockhill was kind of upset, but she'll get over that.
She'll get over it. My face is still recovering.
Yeah.
Still recovering from laughing so hard.
Yeah. Hey,
my goal is to make people go, oh man, I love comedy, I love enjoying the people, but you're not quite Marvin Lee. I want you to enjoy comedy, but I want to kind of make you jaded toward anybody else but me. So I'm a little bit selfish like that, but I still want people to come out and enjoy shows.
It's a great show.
Hey, can we introduce you at your next Central Florida show?
I would be honored for you guys to be a part of my show.
We can build up some introductions.
I would have you guys there in a New York second to be a part of the show.
We would introduce you like, man, you'd be bigger than Richard Pryor, bigger than Eddie Murphy.
Yes.
Bigger than Sinbad.
Chuck is amazing.
Well, man, with the help of you and everybody else, I've been doing it for a lot of years, and just now the word's starting to get out, and I really try to tell people, I want to do a resurgence of comedy. I want people to be proud to come out to see a show. I don't want people to go, hey, I want to kind of cringe, or I don't know if I can bring my coworkers to the show. I don't know if I can bring, my grandmother to the show. That's my thing. I want somebody to be able to come in there and say, we brought everybody we know and everybody enjoyed your show. I didn't have to cringe. I didn't have to sit there and apologize for the comedian. My goal is to make everybody happy to come see what I do.
Well, let me ask you this, because we actually host a bunch of charitable events and also holiday parties here in Central Florida. Are you available for that sort of work? Can we actually hire you for a big, Northrop Grumman or Harris party?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I'm just now going into the time where things are starting to book up for the holiday season. But I do a lot of office parties. That's when you're not doing a comedy club, office parties, holiday parties.
Yeah.
And the thing that I do different, I just don't go in there and just do a general show. If somebody has an office party there, or they really want to laugh, and they're coming down and saying, oh, well, what do we want to do? I customize my show based on that company. So I ask a lot of questions and I get some background on everybody because I don't want to just do a cookie cutter show.
Nice.
So if anybody out there wants a really, really good show for their holiday party and they really want to have their employees have a good time and laugh, by all means, contact me, comedian Marvin Lee. I got my email, everything's there. And here's the other thing too. A lot of times people will hire a band when they have their holiday party and say, we're going to eat or we're going to hire a band. Mm-hmm. Let me tell you what happens when you hire a band. You hire a band and they play all night and people go, okay, we stuck our head in, the boss knows we're here, let's make a run to the bathroom, then after we do that, we're going to ease out to the car. And by the last 30 or 40 minutes, the band is playing and nobody's there.
Boring.
Because people have paid good money,
Yep.
Yeah.
you know, to have the band there, and people cut out. When I come and I do a holiday party for somebody, and I do my show, everybody stays the whole time.
That's
Just
true.
like Jack Straws.
Yep.
When I finish, everybody left after I finished, but they stayed for the whole show.
As a matter of fact, you had more people come in during your show
Yes,
than
you
left.
did.
I've never seen that before.
Yeah.
Nobody left.
And I was really, you know, I was so proud of that, you know, because that showed people how much I really work hard to get people in. A lot of those people that were at Jack Straws, they were just walking through and they would go, "Hey, what's going on?"
Yep.
And they stuck their head in the door and they listened for a moment,
And they
next
stayed.
thing I know, so I'll grab a drink and start to sit down.
Yep, they did. That's true.
That's what makes me proud.
And even
You know,
some.
that's what makes me work hard. That makes me try to be funnier. I love that when that happens. So because we started out, and it was a nice little crowd when we first started. You know, it was a nice crowd. But by the time I was about halfway through my show, it was standing room only.
It was.
It was.
Completely sold out.
And you had some audience participation.
Oh, boy.
Oh yeah. I had some really good audience participation.
You handled
I had
it well.
some really bad audience participation. But the thing about it is, the way I handle it, I always, a lot of times when people, you know, they might have had a few too many drinks, but they don't know. But they're usually good people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't want those people to feel bad. I don't want to do anything to embarrass the people. But the only time I don't like, people ask me, do I ever get upset about people disrupting the show? Generally, no. You know, as long as there's no malice. If people are getting a little loud and everything, having a good time, generally, no. The only time I get upset is when other people in the audience are getting annoyed where they can't enjoy the show.
Yeah.
Then that bothers me because I'm trying to entertain everybody, and if there's one or two people who are getting too loud or disruptive, and the other members in the audience are suffering because of it, then that does get me mad.
Yeah, yeah. And you handled that young lady at that place very, very tactfully. You told her that. As a matter of fact, you said that. Say, hey, you know, you can laugh and say whatever you want, but once you start interrupting other people, then it's a problem. So, yeah, I can vouch for that.
And you know, and there's another side of it too, because you know what's going to happen? Yeah, if that person had too much to drink and they were laughing, if I said something to her, she'll be thinking like, oh, I wasn't that bad, you know.
Yeah,
you know? And
she
then
was.
She'll start seeing me as somebody who just picked on. By the time she makes it to the car, she's gonna be upset and she's gonna, you know, be thinking I'm a jerk. The next morning when she wakes up and she's sober, then I'm the a-hole that was talking about her, and she will not remember what she did to contribute to it.
Yeah.
I'm just the bad guy. And then if I'm the bad guy, she's going to have a bad experience about Jack Straws and some of the other places, and I can't allow that. So, yeah, I have to handle it with kick gloves.
I can vouch for Marvin Lee. He's very, very professional in the show, very tactful, and man, the stamina of a bull, unbelievable.
Even Chuck will vouch for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I really want the ladies in the audience to really focus in on that stamina like a bull part. I just want to make sure that we incorporate that as many different ways as we can. But
we're going to come up with
thank you.
We'll come up with a graphic for that. Hey, we're just about out of time, but comedian Marvin Lee, thank you again for joining us here on Radio Takeover. And tell us again where we can find you online, on Facebook or your website. Where are you?
Yeah, you can find me on the Facebook under comedian Marvin Lee. I always try to tell people, look up comedian Marvin Lee.
Right.
Marvin Lee does not like me.
Or leave Marvin.
Leave Marvin,
You have problems with Lee Marvin, too, don't you? Yeah.
Yeah, so make sure you look up comedian Marvin Lee on Facebook. And I always try to tell people, I'm really accessible. So if anybody has time, sees clips on the show, they can hit me up on Facebook or Messenger. They can also just shoot me an email. Say, hey, Marvin, I heard you on Chuck's show. I heard you on Radio Takeover. I really like blah, blah. I'm pretty accessible. I've been lucky enough not to have any real crazy people. And, unless things change, I like being accessible. The other thing is www.comedianmarvinlee.com. You can't get more simple than that.
There you go. Awesome. And if you can't find her, you can't get in touch for whatever reason, you forget what it is, contact us here at Radio Takeover, and we'll put you in touch with Marvin Lee ourselves.
Yep. Thank you, Marvin.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's a pleasure talking to you. We look forward to seeing you in Central Florida soon. We'll check your website for your next appearances, and we'd love to introduce you. That'd be fun.
Okay, and anytime I'm in the area, if I can come in and talk to you guys, hang out with you guys, and whatever, we can share a beer, whatever, I'd be honored to.
Done deal. That'll be awesome. For Karen Wooden and Marvin Lee, this is Chuck Fresh. Thanks for listening to Radio Takeover. And make sure you check out our social media. Look up Radio Takeover or BrevardRadio.com. We're out. We'll see y'all next week.
This has been Radio Takeover, Brevard's hit talk radio show with Karen Wooden and Chuck Fresh. Heard every Wednesday at 1 p.m. right here on 1510 WMEL. And streaming all over the world 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on iTunes, iHeartRadio, YouTube, and SoundCloud. Join us next Wednesday at 1 for Radio Takeover. For sponsorship rates and availability, please log on to BrevardRadio.com.